I stayed in a ghastly hotel by the ground. They could only have me for one night. And I asked them to book me into another. So they booked, I think it was the Albany, and it was a high-rise hotel, and I went round there and I had dinner. I'd had a few drinks with the players, and I had a bath before dinner, put on a clean shirt, and I drank a bottle of wine. I can remember the book. It was an Agatha Christie, and I read it from cover to cover and went up to bed about 12:15. Fed in, I wasn't high, but I was very nicely, thank you. And the problem started because ever since I was 12 and my mama, whoever had said you needn't wear your pajamas, I always slept with nothing on, which is a perfectly natural thing to do. And I got into bed and went to sleep like a good one, and it was marvellous, and woke up at 2 to 3, and I had my watch on my wrist. And the call of nature was acute, so I got out of bed, and the bathroom's always in the same place in these instant hotels, and so I thought, well, look, no hands, I can do it, and showed off, and so I didn't turn the light on. I just went to where I knew the bathroom would be, and I opened the door, and I'm bleary-eyed, I looked out, and I saw sort of a wall in front. I thought, it's strange, and I looked to the right, and I looked to the left, and I couldn't see anything. Then I heard a great clonk of a weighted door shutting, and realised that I was absolutely stark-bollock naked on the 9th floor of the Albany Hotel, Nottingham, which actually is a little bit of a predicament, isn't it? You don't quite know what to do, and there I was, and rather thick with sleep, and I looked around thinking there might be there's a staircase. There wasn't. I then thought there might be a fire escape. I couldn't find one of them. So then I did begin to scratch my head, and I suddenly saw it outside a door, sort of angle, outside a door. I saw a tea tray. It might have been coffee, I don't know. And I picked up the coffee cup, and underneath was one of those folded paper doilies, things, they're tiny, but you open them out. And
that's right.
What I did was actually, I stood up and I thought, well, and I sort of held it there, and I mean, I'm a modest chap by nature, and I don't show off at all, and I thought, well, that'll just about do, and as long as no one looks around the edges, and I then thought, well, the only thing to do is to give the night porter a thrill of a lifetime. So I pressed the lift, and it came up like a good one, and I got in, and I was a little bit nervous, you can imagine. And there I was at the back, and there were 14 bedroom floors, and then there was an R floor and a small EST for restaurant, a bar, big B and a small AR for bar, and a big R and a small EC for reception, and with great care, circumspection, and precision, because my life depended on it, I pressed the bottom R with the small EC, and the door shut, and we went down the first 9 floors, really it was tremendous. I really honestly felt between floors 2 and 3 that I might have been in the English derby, coming into Tattenham Corner, lying third with a gap in front of me and Leicester Piggott on top, and quite suddenly it stopped, and that rather startled me, and I didn't think we'd got to the bottom R, and I looked up, the lift thing, and sure enough, it was the top R with the small EST, and there I was shivering there. You know how lift doors slightly judder when they open? This slightly juddered, and it opened, and positively surging towards me were 8 ladies in long dresses and 8 men in dinner jackets. There were a party had just broken up. Well, there was I was faced with an unplayable lie in golfing terms, and I simply didn't know what to do. I stood there, and they were well oiled, I may say, and when they came to the odds, and they started to shout the odds, and eventually, after what seemed like 155 years, a little man in glasses came up to me, and he said, "Excuse me, sir," he said, "you look in a spot of bother." I said, "How very swift of you to spot it." I said, "Yes." I said, "The chap I'm really after is the night porter." And I realized as soon as the words were out of my mouth that I could have rephrased it to advantage and rather more successfully. However, he said to me, "Don't worry," he said, "the night porter's over here, I'll get him." He said, "Press the button that says door open." Well, there I was, and I had to get the synchronization right. I had to do that. And to the intense disappointment of about 35,000 people, because that brought the gate, people were charging 10 bob a time for a look. I got it right, and eventually the night porter came, and he took one look at me, and he thought, this is a rum, and this isn't right. So eventually he pressed 9, where I was, floor 9. Well, of course, people were running from floor to floor, and I'd pressed the bottom one, so we went, it was awful. Eventually I got into my room, and that was all right, and I went to bed. Next morning I went down to see the general manager, who'd become a friend, and I said, "Look, at my dear thing," I said, "I'm most awfully sorry." He said, "Well, actual fact," he said, "I thought the whole thing was really rather funny." And I said, "Oh, well, how splendid." But he said, "I've got one thing I would like to say to you." I said, "Well, fire away, I think." And he said, "Well, in my experience," he said, "in my limited experience," he said, "most people," he said, "are recognized by their faces." He said, "Don't you think you should have got your splendid paper doily and done that with it?" And honestly, true story.
Henry, thank you very much for talking to us. I was actually given the brief to talk to you briefly about cricketing matters for about 5 or 6 minutes or so. We were going to play some more highlights of the bicentennial test before the midday news, but unfortunately we've sort of gone over time. But not to worry, it's most entertaining.
Have I put my foot in it again?
No, far from it. I would remind you, though, that it is Sunday morning. This is New Zealand, but I'm sure it was delightful anyway. Just let's take a quick look out.